So this is the tutorial for the exercise 5 copycat, and we'll be recreating some elements from this commercial. So we'll be making something more like this. Alright, so let's get started. I have the yourlastname_ex5.eap file open. So the first thing we're going to do is save this with our real last name. So in my case, it'll be Jones_ex5. Save, so that's good. And then I'm also going to import a cheat sheet that has screenshots of what all of these comps should look like once we've got all the animations and everything in there. So I can either double click in this space or else go to File, Import, File, and then in your exercise 5 copycat folder, then there's something called EX5 cheat sheet, and it's just a JPEG, so I'm just going to import that. It's fine if it's footage, open. And so now if I double click over here, then I have a new tab up here and I can zoom in. So now if I hit the space bar and move my little view around, then I can see at the end this is what the edit comp should look like. It's got a couple different comps nested in it, and if we look at the record player comp, we've got quite a bit of keyframing going on. We have to make another comp for text. Platter comp has just some layer shortening going on, and then there's quite a few keyframes here too. So that's an overview of what we'll be doing. And so let's just go ahead and start in this edit comp. I can go back to my tab up here, and I'm just going to leave this open so I can jump back and forth between this tab and this other tab, depending on what comp I'm in, to just make sure I'm doing everything right. So if we look at our audio, the first thing we see is we don't have any keyframes, so it's just going to be really abrupt. And that's not what we want, so we'll just make some really simple keyframes here. I'll just move the scrub bar to the beginning of the area where this song part begins, and I'm just going to hit the stopwatch on the audio levels, and then I'm just going to move the scrub bar till the end and change the audio level to all the way down. So now we can see that the audio has sort of siphoned off and has ended. You can see how the waveform changes. So again, that's just going to be at -48. And so for this audio level, I'm going to put a keyframe there and then go to the beginning, and then I want it to start at -48. So now I have this layer with the sound ending, and then this one, the sound is beginning. So if we play that, it's sort of a nice transition. And then we also don't want our sound to end abruptly. So I'm just going to do the same sort of treatment. I'll go to the very end and I'll put a little keyframe down, and then I'll move maybe 20 frames, put another one down. Oops, this is on the wrong layer, so I'm just going to grab those keyframes, cut them, paste them on this one. And so the audio level should be at 0, this first one, and then this last one should be at -48. So again, we've got that little fading type of look, so we know that that's what the sound is doing. So now we have a nice fade and it doesn't end abruptly. Alright, so now that we have our audio edited, then we can move on to the orange Ritz, which if we look at it, there's nothing going on here. But if we look at our commercial, it scales to the beat of the music, and it just scales like 3 times before other stuff starts happening. So I'm going to select my orange Ritz layer, And we can see that it's actually a shape. If we toggle the contents down, we have a poly star, and if we look at the path, I've got 30 points, and I've got just a bunch of different things going on with the inner radius and the outer radius to make it look right. I'm going to undo all of that. And then I also have some masks to cut out the little holes for the cracker. So I'm just going to hit S on my keyboard so that I just have the scale options open, because we know that that's what we're working with. And if we look at our cheat sheet, then it looks like we've got just 3 things that scale, or like 3 sort of scaling movements, I guess I should say. And it starts at the very beginning, so I'm going to hit the stopwatch for scale and lay my first keyframe down, and then I'm going to move forward a couple keyframes so that I end up hitting that top part of the beat where it's the loudest. So about 3 keyframes, and then I'm going to scale it up to a pretty good amount, maybe like right around there. I think it's like 123.7, and then I'm just going to copy the keyframes because we know that it'll be the same type of movement. So we've got it scaling up, and now we need it to scale back down. I'm going to play my music really quick. So it's this sort of first, third, and fifth type of beat that the cracker scales up on. So I'm going to paste those keyframes, and we want it to be the largest where the beat is, so I'm just going to move those keyframes over so that the second keyframe lines up with that beat, and I'm going to move ahead a little bit, paste my keyframes, and then I need them to line up with this beat, which looks pretty good. So let's just round preview that really quick. So that looks pretty darn good, and if we notice, it doesn't really have any motion blur going on, but if we look at the actual commercial, it definitely does. So to do that, I'm just going to hit the little motion blur tab right there, and then you also have to hit the button that enables motion blur for the entire comp. So I've got this on and this on, so now if we look at it, then we have the same type of motion blur that they had in their commercial. Alright, and that's about it for this comp right now. I'm going to toggle those shut. And then we know that we don't need this layer to extend indefinitely, so if you just highlight it and hold Option and then the closing bracket, or else you can move the very end of it. I'm just going to move it to about right here because we can always shorten it later if we don't need that extra length on it. So let's go ahead and move on to the record player comp.